And we're live. Welcome to TMC Live, episode 6. Now featuring myself, Elixir, and that can't be Darius Johnson. Nope, that's.
Have you been dieting? Oh, it's a new person.
It's a new person on the show. It's not Darius Johnson. I think that's. God damn it, that would have been a really.
We
good
should have
joke.
just called you not Darius Johnson.
Yeah, right on the overlay, just not Darius Johnson.
We missed out on a great opportunity.
Yeah, so this is episode 6, new cast member. Get to that in a minute. It's the Post-Phoebe edition, or as we like to call it, Phoebe. What do you guys think? Is this good? Is this bad? Is it terrible?
I don't know if it's terrible because this is apparently only phase 1.
Yes. Well, that takes us to like the most controversial and most important part to most people in nullsec, which is the jump fatigue. I like a lot of what came with Phoebe, but that is probably the most divisive.
Yeah.
I think in general, Phoebe is going to be known as a patch that has really changed the dynamic in nullsec, but we have yet to see what's going to come in with the further changes that they've promised at Eve Vegas and in dev blogs and all this stuff. This is just the first step. They keep reiterating that, but already I think I've heard some talk about a couple of fights that probably would have happened pre-Phoebe that have not post-Phoebe, and
that's fantastic.
I can't stop.
I can't do that. All right.
All right, up audio a little bit more.
Someone in Twitch chat called it Phoebola. I'm done.
Phoebola. I like
that
it.
was a great. I don't know if it's a comment or a commentary on Phoebe as a patch, or if it's just funny and clever, or both. But it got me. It cracked me up. I'm good.
Yeah, it's good. But yeah, so a couple fights have already been missed. Obviously, before the patch hit, we already saw coalitions kind of squaring themselves off into spaces, kind of trying to consolidate and prepare for the coming terror that is Phoebe.
Hunkering down.
I definitely see where a lot of these alliances are coming from. Thinking about the logistics of having to jump ships, especially for Goons, who has space literally covering almost half the map until a few weeks ago, which was insane in and of itself. I imagine the logistics of that must have been nuts. But then with this whole patch, like the thought of having to jump stuff from VFK all the way down into Delve would have been literally the worst thing. Especially since I don't think you can jump through HiSec anymore. Like you can't use a HiSec path. I don't know if you could ever do that. Right. I'm not very well versed in capital ships.
I don't know that you can ever do that. Nope.
But still, that's still pretty nuts. Having to work through all that and then wait on jump fatigue, because by I think the 5th jump you're looking at probably about a couple hour cooldown there before you can jump again, which is just insane on the face of it.
Well, and we were just talking right before the show started about the way that fatigue stacks up and how quickly it falls off and all that entails.
How not quickly it falls off, you mean?
Yes.
Sure, that.
Because
talking about putting a cap on it, that sounded kind of ridiculous. What was that?
Maybe it was a comment. Yes, it was an off comment in a forum post that said we're looking at maybe capping it at a month, but that is a still ridiculously, hilariously long amount of time for you to be jump fatigued.
I just can't imagine a situation in which a fucking month. What the hell?
I mean, presumably you'd have to make smaller and smaller and smaller jumps. Yeah, that would have to almost intentionally. You'd have to grind up that much fatigue.
But then at the end of it, you can't jump for a month.
Yeah, you're neutered.
It's very odd. I mean, it feels like the best way to go about getting around this jump fatigue is to jump once, go through a few gates until the timer or the fatigue runs down a bit, make another large jump, do it again. That seems like probably the best way to work around it, because if you're letting your timer and your jump fatigue kind of tick down a bit, your timer isn't going to be quite as long, but it still grows exponentially, so any amount of jump fatigue will add to your timer monstrously, even a small amount, it seems.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely a heavy-handed feature, I think.
Yeah.
If anything, I expect they've overdone it and they'll be scaling it back in the coming patches.
I hope so.
Because it's one thing to, you don't want the whole galaxy escalating, a fight in low sec into, 10 Titans on each side every day. But you also want those fights to be able to happen at least every once in a while.
Right, and that's kind of the thing is they weren't happening every day. Like Asakai was a thing because it doesn't happen every day.
And it was fantastic, and it was a lot of fun. I was part of it, even though jumping into the system was literally Hitler. But it was fantastic once I got there, and I really enjoyed the atmosphere. And doing those big fights, maybe once every 2 or 3 months that they happened, was fine. And I get where CCP is coming from, trying to discourage larger scale, let's just throw everything at each other but the kitchen sink until one of us can't escalate any further. That was a loud typing.
That was a loud typing.
Hello.
Sorry.
Probably not.
That's all right. That's all right.
I was
just
looking up a piece we did. Oh, I apologize. I was looking up a piece we did where we interviewed Grayscale when the long-distance travel changes were announced. And one of the questions I had asked was whether this was intended to provoke more small fights at the expense of the big fights. And Grayscale, as I recall, pretty much answered, yes, we think there's more value in lots of medium to small size fights than in having, an Asakai or a BTAC-R every 6 months or whatever.
And that's been emphasized pretty much in every post, every dev blog, every patch thing that they've put out about this, every forum post that a dev has made. The goal has been, first of all, to shake up nullsec, to stop the stagnation of nullsec. To scale back big fights because, quote, well, TLDR, quote, big fights are cool, but they're not that cool, which is essentially what one of the posts said. They're great and all, but they're not really that great. We want smaller skirmishes, I guess. And I can see where they're coming from, because those can be fun, and they take a little bit more skill in some cases to work around a smaller fleet. But at the same time, those big scale fights are still a lot of fun. And it's a little sad to think they might not be around anymore.
It's one of those things, though, where it's like, I kind of understand what maybe he's getting at. Like, there's more value to, to players that already exist in the game to have more smaller scale fights. But surely from a marketing perspective of this game, when EVE Online hits the headlines, it's not because there was, 30 medium scale engagements in nullsec. Nobody cares.
Right.
It's because BTAC-R happened, or it's because Asakai happened. You get these massive fights, and that can't really happen anymore, ever again. And I do think that there's a lot of value to that. You see a lot of people have stories of coming into the game, newer players, that came in because of Asakai, or came in because of BTAC-R, because it's on the BBC, like it's on CNN, like it's being talked about in mainstream media, and you're not going to get that anymore. So in terms of value, there's very different definitions of value, and I think it's a risk on their part.
Yes.
And it's something.
But that's what they're all about right now, is throwing some changes out, kind of seeing what's going on, see how the players handle it, see what happens.
And subverting some long-held assumptions about EVE with Siegel at the helm.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring up Siegel, because I can't envision an EVE Online in which John Landers, the executive producer, or anybody else is still there from that old crew, everyone that's gone to write in various places.
Yeah.
I can't really imagine like an older CCP doing something like this. To take away something that is really a selling point of the unique feature of EVE Online versus all other MMOs. And I think that's because, Siegel is a bit of an outsider. She doesn't come necessarily from the same culture, background, however you want to kind of phrase it, that exists within CCP. And I know a lot of people were kind of frustrated with her over the last couple of years, because she gets up on stage and she's working on her public speaking, but obviously it's not a strong suit of hers. And
it's not for everyone.
And it's something that I think a lot of people can relate to. I mean, it's hard to get up on a stage in front of 1,200 nerds and talk about their game that they love.
1,200 anyone, to be fair.
She can't win because she has to talk about the long-term strategy, and the player's inevitable response is, this isn't a feature that's going to come anytime soon. Why are you wasting my time?
Right.
Yeah.
And but the most interesting facet of this is not so much that she's come in and she's kind of this different leader. It's that apparently she is being given the reins to lead, which is a very significant step that I'm not sure a lot of people are fully aware of in the community. The fact that they are doing these changes, like unlimited skill queue, and the clone changes that are coming, which we'll talk about here in a second as well. The fact that she was even given the green light to attack these things, and the fact that lots of devs are on board with this, like Fozzie and Rise and Fox4 and this kind of newer generation, if you will, of EVE developers are all kind of on board with this and really kind of buying into not just ignoring sacred cows, but like taking them out back and slaughtering them and turning them into burgers.
You know what? It's exciting though, because as much as the old EVE is good in some ways, she's addressing a lot of problems that have been problems for a long time, and there's been talk of we'll probably deal with this sometime in the future, and now is the future, and she's headlining that and bringing it forward. I mean, people have been talking for years and years and years about something has to be done about capitals, being able to jump them from one end of space to the other. It's just ridiculous, you know, escalating fights over and over and over and over and over again until someone eventually just can't fight anymore. It's all crazy, and in some ways, yes, it does make nullsec stagnant, and it has a bunch of implications, and people are just like, oh my god, something needs to be done about capitals. So now something is being done. We don't necessarily know if it's the right answer yet, and we'll see as more changes come how capitals will play a role later, which is exciting because now it seems like people are just going to kind of hoard them at home and be like, just defend my stuff. Please don't take my things. I like my Saab, which is what I would do personally. I don't know about how obviously I don't have any like look into the minds of people who make these kinds of decisions.
That seems to be the general null block
response. But that's what I would do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's either that or go to curse.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's kind of a funny part of this whole thing is these moves were marketed initially as a way to break up the stagnation in nullsec, and I don't know that this does that.
I don't think it does either. Especially, like, I know that they tried to change stations and stuff to have less HP and be a little bit more vulnerable to smaller ships. But I'm still not really looking forward to taking like my cruisers out and shooting a station. It's literally not happening.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. And it's something that is kind of curious because it was a pretty easy logical conclusion to come to when you consider these initial changes anyways in this system, and we don't know, they could have other stuff up their sleeves further down the road, but you take away force projection, of course the established entities are going to just hole up. You take away the ability for large attacking forces to be very mobile on a cap and above scale, and of course it's going to be impossible to assail like the CFC or PO, wherever they end up holding up, Nully and these guys. Mm-hmm. It makes it more difficult, if anything, to dislodge these older entities. And granted, it does open up some space. There's new space obviously available, and
because people are pulling out of places that are harder to hold or too far from home base, which is understandable. But still, new alliances are going to form into those pockets, and then they'll be just as difficult to evict if they're big enough powers, or if they have enough capitals, I guess.
I also did want to mention real quick the Phoebe Crusade.
Yeah. How adorable.
It's a good word. As a direct result of Phoebe, who are these people anyways? I actually don't.
That's a really good question.
Like,
just a bunch of randos, who organize through a subreddit. Some varying.
Yes, that's always a great method of.
Yeah. Well,
yes, it's perfect.
Several somebodies had the idea that, hey, there's all this open space opening up. Let's organize a bunch of, relative newbies and take some space, which is a fine idea on its own. It's like the thing that the Mittani is most likely to laugh at and expect to fail. I think they managed to hold Sov in like Ethereum Reach for a day. I don't know if that's still ongoing. Yeah, it was sweet.
They did it. They did it, Reddit.
Hey, if they took Sov, it counts, right?
It does count.
Yes, they're a power now.
They are a power. They must be given a seat at the table.
Are they a cute power, though? Are they like a little bunny rabbit?
They have some nice propaganda, so I'll give them points for that.
Hey, they got good propaganda. That's half the battle.
That really is. I mean,
it really
is.
That's how you recruit.
So the exciting thing that I think everyone's looking forward to now came out this week during CCP's 07 show. Which is really dumb name for a show.
It is, but that's okay.
There were two updates made, two reveals rather, made during that show. The first being a bunch of stuff having to do with clones.
Yes.
Yes, which is super interesting, I think. It's a little weird, and I'm wondering why they've decided to pull the trigger on this with the same thing that we're wondering why they decided to pull the trigger on the Qs. So why all of a sudden are clones being toyed with? I know
I think
Literally
at some
wants to
point,
talk about it, so.
Yeah.
I'll
sorry, I'm talking over you.
That's all right, take the reins.
Okay, so I get the feeling, one of the things that they covered in the 07 show was a nice deep long look with CCP Explorer about the 5-week development cycle, the new cycle that they're on. And basically it gives, the intention behind it anyways, is to give features time to take as long as they need to. And then with the 5-week release cycle, you get relatively regular releases. So as a result, expansions don't necessarily have a theme anymore, and you end up with, like, somebody comes up with a list of, say, quality of life changes, like, hey, let's make it so that we don't have to buy clones, let's make it so that people... And they do those one after the other, so one comes out in Phoebe, one comes out in Rhea. I imagine there's a big pile of things that Siegel or whoever is masterminding this thinks are just straight up dumb about Eve, relics of 2004. And she's working through them one by one. We're just seeing the first two.
I'm excited about them, though.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned,
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned quality of life improvements. Obviously, right around the corner here, and this is going to destroy any credibility I may have had, but the new WoW expansion is coming out. And
Hooray!
WoW is actually a really good example of a game that has developed over time and deployed a lot of quality of life improvements, but at a certain point, you kind of exactly, like you lose something about your game at a certain point. One of the things that makes EVE Online unique is the fact that it does have this steep learning curve and is really deep and almost archaic in the way that it's set up. But it's our kind of archaic. Like it's like if you've been around for a while. Some of this stuff is kind of just the unique, weird twists and turns of the game that we like to play. And getting rid of those, they all sound good individually. Like, unlimited skill queue, great, thank you. Now I don't have to log in so often. I don't
have to set an alarm for 4 in the morning to wake up to put something else in.
I don't get the stupid pop-ups anymore that says your skill queue's run out. And fuck, now I gotta log in again. I fucking hate logging into this game. Now I don't have.
This game is awful.
Now I don't have to deal with that problem anymore. Clones, like no more upgrades or whatever. Awesome, because that was a really stupid little mechanic that was put in there that was really just annoying, if anything.
As a pro player, I have to say, it was awful because I was like, I barely have money to upgrade, and if I want to reship and upgrade, it's not happening.
Yeah.
Shit.
Maybe try not being poor.
It's hard.
He's got a point.
And
it's
again,
really hard
that's not too hard to come by.
I disagree. Because you want to do something, the PvE is fucking awful in this game, I have to say.
You realize you are a girl and you have a woman's voice, so you can scam.
Are you suggesting? Excuse me, sir.
Yes. Are you suggesting I use my body?
Not your body. Not your body. Okay,
dare
I guess
you,
your
sir?
Words are your body.
Midship isn't on this podcast.
I discuss myself.
The thing I'm trying to get at here is, at what point down the road do we look back and wonder about, like, what happened to old Eve? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's kind of that moment when, if you've been playing a game for a long time, WoW is a perfect example. Like, I look back at that game and it was very, very different when I started playing in 2005. Like, it's a different game now. And in some ways, I don't know that it's necessarily a better game.
I don't think it's better, personally.
So, I feel like there's an element of danger there. If you take quality of life too far.
Yeah. Well, it depends on your definition of quality of life. If they start saying things like, hey, suicide ganking, that's just bad for Eve, so let's take it out. That is an integral part of Eve. But things like the clone thing, the skill queue, those are arbitrary restrictions put on players and penalties put on players.
They are in some cases, but they're also major stopping points in some ways for a lot of newer players. It's a lot slower for them to get into the game. There's a lot steeper of a learning curve because of some of these things. And it's the same thing going back to the WoW example, where the game used to be kind of difficult. Going into the content wasn't like, oh, just don't stand and shit on the ground, perfect, you know. And Eve is a little bit more complicated because you had to be very careful with where you were going and making sure that you weren't just flying off into random space, because who gave a shit? It doesn't cost me money to really lose my ship. But now it does, you know, stuff like that. You had to be careful, and now it doesn't matter. Now you can just go off and be stupid. So I think some of the correlation here is at what point do we allow new players and not take anything away from the old players?
Yeah. In
some ways, and that is a quality of life change, and I would like to see more players come in, but at the same time, I also don't want more terrible players that are never going to learn how to be better come into the game, because it ruined WoW.
Are you talking about players like the people that play in God, what's that alliance that used to be relevant? Test?
Oh, Test Alliance.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, those guys. Whatever happened to those crazy kids?
You know, I love them all to death, and they're wonderful, but I don't know. We just kind of do our own thing. Just kind of hang out. Fair. I'm all right with it.
And somebody in the chat just actually mentioned this, and I was going to get to this, is one of the kind of tragedies of these changes coming to clones is, like, how will DBRB ever again lose FC5? You know, you're going to lose, like, on a certain level, you're going to lose these funny stories.
You know what? They don't
exist anymore, and in 3 years,
yeah.
In 3 years, if things go well, and a new player comes in, they won't even understand the context of that joke. It won't even make sense.
And that's unfortunate, too, because, you know, and I'm going to go off on a little story tangent. I got my first cruiser character. I wanted a Mar character. I was like, a Mar Cruiser 5, yes. Jumped it to system to deploy my Zealot, died, lost a Mar Cruiser 5. The whole reason I got the character suddenly nullified for 3 weeks. I was like, fantastic, perfect, awesome. And it's a funny story, and it's something I laugh about now, and you guys get it, and you think, oh, that's really funny. And I think you're right. Losing those kind of people being like, what? What are we talking about? Why would you lose skills? Like, that would be awful.
That was a really good impression of a dumb Eve player, by the way. Yeah.
So I think from CCP's perspective, though, there's probably like 2 other players who lost their level 5 skill and were like, I'm gone, I'm done. You know, you can take this from either side.
Yeah, but again, it comes back to kind of like the identity of Eve and what being an Eve player means, and some of this is being eroded by these changes. It's not to say that I'm necessarily against the changes. I think, again, taken individually, they're very good. Like unlimited skill queue is awesome, because now I can actually bother to skill my characters up. That's great. But there's a line somewhere, and I'm sure at some point we're going to cross it, and we won't realize that we've crossed it.
I just hope. I think sometimes the arguments on one side sound like you're going too far. The other arguments sound like it's Stockholm Syndrome. I love Eve, even though it hurts me. I don't want it to change.
That's fair. Are you the Mittani? You're like busting out some psychology. Are you going to start saying Dunning-Kruger next?
Maybe. I'm working on this.
If we get that, I'm out. If you get that, I'm out. I'm done if you get that far.
No, it won't come to that, because he just won't be on the show.
Oh, shit.
So the other thing, it's brand conflict. You wouldn't. It's all about the hashtag.
Can't have 2 Mittanis. What would the world do with 2 of you?
And a ginger Mittani at that. I mean, honestly.
I don't think that would work. Nobody can take that kind of guy seriously.
The other thing that came out in 07 that I was actually really excited about, I know Nystrix still is Thera. So they have decided to fix all the things that are wrong with Eve, not by addressing the 4 existing types of space, but by creating a 5th, which is going to be Thera, which is going to operate like wormhole space in some regards. And a bit more like nullsec, regular like NPC nullsec in others. obviously we don't have all of the details quite yet.
Yes.
So we don't know exactly what they have planned. Fozzie was very brief in terms of specifics on the show. He did say that Thera is going to be a wormhole system that only has static K-space connections, so it only connects to, it doesn't connect to other wormholes. It only connects to known space. And it will have NPC stations in it with full services available, and that the system will be massive in order to address concerns that it would just be silly. I guess. I don't really know.
I would like to say that the idea of Thera is wonderful. I think that it would be really cool to have, you know, a bunch of people in a station in a wormhole that can open just about anywhere, and then be like, one day head tech, the next day VFK, the next day somewhere else. And I mean, the idea and the implications and the idea, I guess it's very exciting. It's something that could be a lot of fun, but and I think you guys were mentioning this before, and I think you're right, that the actual practical applications for this are going to be a lot more difficult than
so
we might think.
So I was really excited for this. Like, super excited. Like, I will actually log into EVE again excited. And then I started thinking about it a little bit. And the idea of solving some kind of gameplay gap that exists in EVE Online by adding just a different kind of space is maybe a little silly. The idea, the conceptualization of this is really fucking cool. Like,
I agree.
If you could live in this place and basically roam without having to roam, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be
super
nice.
cool. Really cool idea. I would love that. I'll move there in a heartbeat.
Jita with no Concord. Yes, please.
Yeah, and
yes.
And there's also restrictions. You can't bring caps in.
Yeah, no caps, no pos.
Yes.
No caps, no pauses. So it seems suited for obviously subcap warfare and like roaming as a base of operations and that kind of thing. And the system itself, I imagine, will be kind of like a murder zone, essentially. Of just a bunch of people living there and murdering the hell out of each other.
That's pretty much what the chat is saying. They're like, this will just be a giant bloodbath system.
Yep.
But the concerns I had were essentially, like, big systems are really kind of annoying when they exist in EVE Online right now. Like, there'll just be a Stargate like 150 AU away or something. So it can be a little bit difficult to navigate that safely or to scout it correctly without some prior preparation. I imagine there's going to be a land rush into this space.
Definitely.
People that are interested are going to move in there immediately and start building things or just bring in their own subcaps. With the idea of only having K-space statics, obviously statics can be rolled, so those can change, but you know, if people who live in wormhole space right now are any indication, that's not going to be any kind of impediment to constant bubbles or camping of those statics. You know, it's going to be a little bit difficult for you know, a solo roamer like myself to kind of gain any kind of traction there and operate in a manner that is fun for me. And of course, that's not, you know, I'm not the most important person in the world. Like, solo roamers, maybe this is just not meant for solo roamers. Maybe this is meant for coordinated groups. But again, what are you offering here? What is actually going to take place here? Not to mention the fact that, like, as soon as it comes out, I mean, tie-dye, I imagine, is just going to be stupid. And that place is just going to be unbearable for a period of time.
In the stream... Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I don't... Okay. I think just a small thing. I think maybe this is kind of counteractive to the you can't move your capitals, but here's a really fun, fast way to move your ships to other space to fuck with other alliances. Maybe that's the idea here. I'm not really sure. Sorry, I interrupted you. Like, Chi, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say in the stream they specifically mentioned it appealing to alliances who want to go on deployment, so large gangs, and quote-unquote sightseers, because this is apparently going to be very integrated with the lore, have a lot of landmarks you can warp to. I also suspect it might be popular with entities like RVB,
Yep.
who, you know, if they want to go on a deployment, they don't have to do fancy logistics to get to Syndicate or whatever. They can just go to Thera and sit there and have the fights come to them, or have Thera come to the fights. There's utility there for larger groups of people, but I agree. If you're a solo PvPer, you're going to show up, and you're probably going to get volleyed by a bunch of insta-locking tornadoes off the NPC station. That's just going to happen.
The bubbles are going to be so real.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be... It's going to be silly to a degree that I think that maybe we can't even comprehend. But again...
Maybe.
Again, though, we don't know all the specifics. And so, you know, Wormhole Space has particular environments that nerf or buff various aspects of gameplay. There could be stuff along those lines that we haven't really thought of coming into this space. We'll find out soon, though. Apparently it's going to be up on the test server. I think they said in about a week or two.
Within a couple weeks, yeah.
So it's something that I think I will actually try and get on the test and go check out, because it's very interesting as a concept. I really like it, but I'm not sure about how implementation is going to really work out. So
I'm going to be an optimistic person. Yeah, I'm going to be an optimistic person from tests and hope that everything's just going to be okay. So that's just how I'm going to be, because I'm terrible.
That's always worked out for tests in the past, right?
Always. It's can never go wrong, guys.
Yeah. So I think that kind of wraps up like current Eve news. Rewinding a little bit, obviously it's been a little while since we had an episode of TMC Live, since before Eve Vegas, and obviously Eve Vegas was a pretty big thing. We actually saw like a nice montage of Eve Vegas on the 07 show, where you can actually see quite a few TMC members. Darius Johnson was the short, what's the good word for this? Rotund Elvis.
Ooh.
Is that who he was? I was like, everyone told me Darius Johnson was there, but I was like, where? So.
Yes.
Yep, he was an Elvis on Saturday.
He was also the one receiving a marriage proposal from Zastro.
Yes,
in
he
that
was
video,
also receiving a marriage proposal from Zastro, who was the tall, lanky Elvis.
Yes.
There was also Zappa was there. Was another one of the Elvises.
Elvis. I don't know.
Is that the
thing?
I
think Elvi would be the.
Let's
plural.
go with that.
You could also see, I think, Nonak Severin, who's one of our writers, was in that montage. Yeah, there was just a lot of people there. Vegas was kind of a madhouse. We had intended to do an episode of TMC live from Vegas. We even had the space for it.
Wow.
And then we got really drunk.
Such is life in Vegas jail, I guess.
And we couldn't...
Meaning to ask about that.
We couldn't really pull the trigger on that. At one point, Darius Johnson was sitting at the streaming machine. We had it set up in Eve Vegas, right next to all the PvP tournament stuff. And I believe he was watching Taylor Swift videos.
Oh no! My opinion of Darius Johnson just went
and just sipping on Jameson and ginger as he had been for the last, I think at that point, 60 hours.
Nice.
So that didn't quite happen, and I apologize for that if anybody was possibly looking forward to that.
The more you talk about it, the more I wish it did happen, by the way.
I do too. Drunk TMC Live.
I told him that I wanted it to happen still, that he should stream some stuff. I unfortunately was kind of out of the loop at that point. I got taken away at some point. I had to interview Fozzie, and then there was a press dinner to head over to. Yeah, it didn't happen, and I apologize for that. We will get Darius Johnson to do his thing that was intended to be the big kind of climax of Vegas at some point soon. The other really cool thing about Vegas, though, was meeting a lot of people, and I was actually really kind of weirded out by this because I had people coming up and recognizing me. And I'm not like the famous FC Lazarus Tellraven who feeds on this, who literally cannot exist without validation from these strangers. I actually find it really quite uncomfortable. But at the same time, it was really cool. And got a lot of really good feedback about the show and a lot of encouragement. And so I want to thank everybody who is watching now or watching later or listening. I really appreciate all the kind words that everybody had. It was really great to meet everybody. And yeah, I mean, Vegas was a thing. Like, it was a really good thing. And
it was awesome.
yeah, like it's I'm looking forward to next year and seeing what they do with that.
I'm not looking forward to running the site while you're all drunk.
See, next year
Then
what I'm
come
going to
to
have
Vegas.
to do now. Yes,
Oh,
you
shit,
should just,
that's the solution.
And then we'll find
It
someone
is.
else to run the site.
Yes, yes. Oh man, we won't publish anything for like 5 days. It'll be wonderful.
It was my
Who needs
first
a
time in
website?
Vegas,
That's fair.
which was awesome in and of itself. And then on top of that, it was Eat Vegas. It was rather fantastic. Although next year it seems as though I'm going to have to purchase a full ticket and not just a reception ticket because I missed a lot. Although I did get pretty drunk at the reception, which was fantastic.
That's always a good move.
I enjoyed that very much.
I actually didn't catch too many of the talks. I caught the keynote. I caught Java Junkie's talk, which was entertaining in its own way because of the special events that Elo Knight
Elo Knight
conducted the night
Really?
previous.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, he just walked into a suite and took all our booze. He just walked out.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
He really is the king in the north.
It was a very interesting time. At one point, Schwa Boy, however you know him, on Twitter or on Jabber or whatever, got really, really angry at a Tito's vodka bottle, and decided,
is that what happened?
and decided that it should die violently. And in the process of executing this mission, he cut our favorite furry, Blarf, with some shrapnel. Blarf was bleeding at one point.
That's unfortunate.
He was okay, though. He didn't have to go to an emergency room in Las Vegas on a Saturday night, which is always
fantastic.
really good.
The vets aren't open that late usually anyways.
Yeah, it was just a really crazy time. But I think a lot of good things came out of it, not just for the EVE community, but also for TMC. We got a lot of good work done there. We have lots of behind-the-scenes stuff happening right now, which is why there's been a significant gap here in the show. I did want to explain a little bit about that real quickly before we move on. Following Vegas, I had actually intended to put the show on hiatus for a good long while. Darius Johnson is going to be out of the country for a period of time here, coming up, a lengthy period of time. And we were I was kind of thinking just basically hold it until after the holidays and then hit it again hard after the New Year's. But then I also started thinking about kind of the structure of the streaming. And so you've seen some of these improvements, I think they're improvements anyways, to TMC's Twitch presence. We have Laz now, twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday, starting at 3 p.m. Pacific, doing his thing, roaming in EVE or playing WoW, because you guys all really, really like WoW when that comes out, the new expansion.
I can't tell if you're being serious.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thing.
Okay,
Yes.
because I can't tell right now.
The monotone warrior.
Fantastic.
I'm sorry, there's a guy that was on stage with Java. I didn't see anybody on stage with Java. Java is his own special person, and he eclipses everybody else around him. So, anyways, so we have Laz coming on the stream every Tuesday, Thursdays at 3 p.m. Pacific. We obviously have moved TMC Live to Friday nights at 7 p.m. This is going to be our new time slot, so get used to that. And then we also have once a month, Darius Johnson has his own show now, the first episode of which is going to take place tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific. That's called Inside the Developer Studio. He is going to have Josh Augustine from SOE, who is a developer on EverQuest Next, on, and he's going to do his old little interview thing. If you want an example of that, you can look at the YouTube channel for TMC. You'll have to scroll back a little ways. We'll put a link in the show notes to help you out for the Inside the Developer Studio pilot episode that he did with Stauffer last year. It's going to be something along those lines. That's pretty much it, though. I mean, we have a lot of other things in the works, and the next couple of months are really exciting. We have a lot of stuff coming out that I think people are going to be really, really pleased with. But I do beg forgiveness for the long lapse in this show and the long, terrible time of the Twitch presence for TMC, wherein you saw wonderful things like Alan Wake being streamed daily. I don't know what happened. I'm very sorry. It will not happen again.
Oh.
Moving on.
Yes.
Did you get a chance to play Valkyrie at Vegas?
I did.
Was that your first
I didn't
time?
get it. Yes, I didn't get it. I flew in circles and I was like, it was a little disorienting. I almost said disorientating. I'm so glad I didn't.
Well, now you did.
Oh, well, now I did, but I said it as a haha, I didn't say it thing, so it's fine, right? So
I still hold
you
it
put on
against
this, you put on this thing, and you're supposed to like move your head to lock on targets and like watch them as they go, which is cool. I loved that. I was like, oh, this is really cool. If I just want like, and it took me a while to get used to because, you know, for all of us who play video games forever, it's you like walk up to the thing or fly up to the thing and that's how you keep a lock on it. You got to stay close to it. But having to like just keep my eye on it to watch it, to track it was weird, and it took me a while to get used to because I wasn't doing it for a while, and it was like I had to keep reminding myself you have to watch the target if you want to lock onto it. So I kept screwing that up. And then my other problem with it was, well, not problem, just I'm bad, and that was my problem with it mostly, is that I'm terrible. But my problem with it was that I kept flying like in circles, almost like just rotating, because like most games, when you get shot at from a direction, the red light shows you which direction you're being shot at from.
This is literally why test failed at Eve.
They just kept following the red light.
I put this thing on my face, and then I just flew in circles. Like, what the fuck?
Well, I was trying to follow those indicators that were telling you the thing you want to shoot or find is in this direction or whichever direction it tells you. And so you're trying to follow that, but then you get to a certain point and then it goes to the other direction, so you're like, wait, did I turn too far? Did I miss it? So then you turn back. And I had a hard time with that, and I only played it 2 times, so I didn't really get the chance to get the hang of it, which I think everyone who's played it before had no problems with it. A bunch of my friends that were there were like, oh, it's fine, I got it, no big deal, whatever. And I was just completely lost.
I will say, in your defense, there is a learning curve the first time you put on an Oculus Rift, which is the thing.
That was weird.
That's what the thing is called, the box that you put on your face
is
an Oculus Rift. It's a different way of thinking about space. Like, you're really put into this cockpit. Like, if somebody hasn't tried out Valkyrie or any other kind of Oculus Rift demo, because I don't think there's really any games, it's very disorientating. You don't really know what to make of it at first. Like, you're kind of looking around. You don't understand what's happening. You do get the gist of it pretty easily, and it is not so disorientating, at least not in my experience, that like I ever felt kind of like sick or woozy or anything.
Yeah.
It was a very seamless experience. I played it last year at E3, and then I played it again at Vegas, and so this is my 3rd time playing it, I think. Pretty sure. The first time on the new dev kit, though, dev kit 2 for Oculus Rift, which is now HD, and it looked a little prettier, but it's basically the same thing they demonstrated last year.
That's been pretty much all the feedback from everyone who's played it previously, has said there is almost no difference, except that it looks nicer. And we were talking about this a bit before. Is it because they did some graphical updates, so they changed it a bit, or is it just because it's now in HD and that's fancier and it looks nicer?
I'm pretty sure it's just because it's in HD. There's not real good resolution on the textures if you get up close to them.
I noticed that. That bothered me.
Yeah, stuff is it's very, I don't know. It's Oculus Rift is new, so like in their defense,
it's ready to go apparently.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. Yeah. They say it's feature complete, but all we've seen is this little multiplayer demo, essentially.
Yes.
This isn't really a game. Not yet. Not what we've seen.
Well, see, and I've argued this point before. I argued it actually last year with several people. It is a game, I think, as far as you can call anything a game.
Yeah.
That's
you can
fair.
play it, you can rack up points. There are winners, there are losers, there are rules. It's a game. It's not a very wide game. It's not much of a game, but it's a game. Like you can play it.
The plan is that once what a dev has told me and apparently others, and I think Mark, you said you heard one of them say this as well, is that once Oculus Rift releases, which we don't know when that is, the Valkyrie will release. So the reason that Valkyrie itself doesn't have a release date is because Oculus Rift doesn't have a release date.
Yes.
Essentially, is the TLDR I got from.
Yeah, they are very
devs.
hardware dependent, so that sort of makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, for all intents and purposes, this game is ready to go. It's just waiting on Oculus Rift to hit commercial launch, whatever they deem that to be, while they fuck around with all these other things that they're doing. And I'm kind of disappointed by that. I expected a little bit more depth out of this game. The thing to understand, though, is that the people who are primarily developing this, the actual people sitting in Newcastle at that studio, there's a lot of like former APB Reloaded, I think, devs sitting there. They CCP hoovered up that studio when it closed down, essentially.
I see.
And that's the main core of this studio. So it's not like old school CCPers are now making an Oculus Rift game. It's a different group of guys that are going for quite clearly kind of an arcade experience.
Yeah, although it does, I feel like it reminds me of like a Call of Duty deathmatch. You go in, you shoot each other, whoever gets the most points and kills each other the most wins. Hooray!
Mm-hmm. Like I would be hoping that they are developing new game modes.
I hope so.
Map types, ships.
Yep. Yes.
Customizable ships.
We can only assume.
None of that stuff is on display in these demos. So the experience for anybody that hasn't had it is they run you through the controls. They say, obviously, because the other really awkward thing is you can't see the controller,
which I hate. Because I'm not an Xbox person, and they gave me an Xbox controller, and I do PlayStation. So I was like, "You want me to hit A, B, and X? What? What am I? What? And I can't look at my controller? What? You want me? Okay." And that screwed me a lot because you have to hold on button. You have to hold down buttons to make certain things go off, and I was just like, I don't understand. It was bad.
It's something that I don't know. There's a whole lot of things they could be doing with this game. None of that's on display. If this was last year and they said, yeah, the game's pretty much ready, but this is just a demo, I'd be okay with that. Like, I would assume that there is more that they're just not showing us, and that's going to come out when the game comes out, or maybe during a beta phase, whatever.
Yes.
The concerning thing is that last year they were saying, oh, we still got a lot of work to do on this thing. And then this year, it's essentially the same thing. And they're saying it's feature complete, ready to go.
Yes.
With no mention of the word that, oh, this is just a demo.
Yeah, it's a little...
This is just a slice of the game. You don't understand. None of that kind of language is coming out of these guys, and that could be just maybe the devs aren't particularly well primed to deal with media questions like that.
Maybe.
But I have
it is disconcerting.
I have a really bad feeling that that's not the case. I have a really bad
feeling. I'm really hoping it's the case. Like I said, optimism is my thing. I'm really gonna hope that they've got more to it than that. However, I'm going to when it launches and releases, I'm going to wait for the shit show that will be the forums when it is just the way it was at Vegas and not purchase it or an Oculus Rift. But we'll see, and hopefully that won't happen.
The thing is,
this is going to be a test of whether CCP has learned from Dust's launch, I think.
That implies
it's
CCP
the only
things.
other game they've ever released. Eve, Dust, that's pretty much it. And Dust went down not so well, I think everyone would agree. Yeah. 2 years later...
hold on, is that Project Legion you're talking about?
Oh, yes. Excuse me. Yes, Project Legion, which I can't wait for, and it's going to revolutionize the sci-fi shooter genre.
Absolutely.
But
in a way that Destiny did not. God damn it.
What's Destiny?
Nothing.
I can't tell. Sometimes you guys sarcasm. I swear. I need a better
I was really
sarcasm
excited for
detector.
Destiny, and then it was Destiny, and
You talked about it for like 2 months, and then you've never talked about it ever since then.
Yep. I was excited to play it. I thought it was going to be fantastic, and then I went to my friend's place to try it out, and I was like, it's fine. Which is so lackluster because it was like, it's going to be so good, and I was like, it's fine.
Yeah.
That's like what you say after you've had disappointing sex. It's fine.
all right then.
Go to the bathroom and clean up.
So the other thing I got to do at Vegas was sit down with Fozzie for a little bit and did an interview with him. We talked a little bit about what was in the keynote, so like Tech 3 destroyers and
Yes.
glass cannons, which turned into blighted weapons, which nobody appears.
I think they have a third name now.
to have
I haven't been
changed
paying
again.
attention.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's
I
like
stopped paying attention.
overcharged or something.
Oh, is
Anyways,
that it
go
now?
on.
Good, because that makes it better.
Renaming is all that matters.
We talked a little bit about the development cycle that they're on now and stuff like that. One of the things that was just brought up in the chat is somebody asked about dojos, which obviously is the feature that CCP Veritas created on his way out the door as he was departing to Riot, as every other dev has basically gone.
Retail, please.
And what Fozzie said is that so that still exists. You can still play it on Duality, which is the second test server. They're very eager to do more things like this. Develop features that they'll just slap onto Duality. You can kind of take a poke at them and then let CCP know what you think about them, if they're any good.
Which I love. I love that.
The disappointing part, though, like Fozzie was pretty disappointed because they haven't received a lot of feedback about the dojos.
To be fair, I didn't know that was a thing. I actually don't know anyone who's even mentioned it as being a thing. So maybe the key to getting more feedback is marketing. Because if people don't know it exists, people aren't going to care.
I don't know.
There was one dev blog and pretty much silence on it since then, unless you read the test server forums.
That's unfortunate.
So dojos essentially were constructed by Veritas to fill a role of kind of like quick and easy consensual PvP. Just kind of load it up and do your thing, and you get like 1v1s or whatever through this system, and you don't have to rely on somebody's space honor to get a 1v1. There's a lot that can be done there. I think it's a really intriguing idea, but if no one's going to go test it, and if they're not going to market it and push it, you know, who really cares? Like, that's probably not a thing that's ever going to happen. Instead, we're going to get Thera. I don't know.
We'll see how that goes. Optimism.
I think it'll be great, you guys.
It'll be great!
So the other thing I know that we wanted to get to before we wrap up the show is ArcheAge, which apparently Nice Trick really cares about. Don't really know why, but it is a thing, and it just got a big patch.
It scratches the MMO itch.
Okay.
Is really what it does, because Eve started to drain on me, and I needed another MMO because I'm addicted to MMOs. But yes, ArcheAge got a huge, big deal patch, which opened up Aurora, which is for those of you that play, there's two islands, and then there was Aurora, and it was this mysterious magical land that only Korea and Russia had access to, and now we have access to it. Hooray! Fantastic, congratulations. So land grabs suck so hard, and Treon made a big tooting holler about, look guys, we banned like 70,000 bots. We're so good at this bot banning game. Look at us go. And then land grab happened, and this was my personal experience. Within 5 seconds, every plot that could possibly be taken was taken. Which is nuts to me. And I mean, it shouldn't be too hard because, you know, you just click on the spot where you want to place your house, you click confirm, and then it builds it as long as you have all the stuff. Well, it half builds it as long as you have like the tax certificates necessary for it. But then my favorite part was that we're standing there. There's like 4 or 5 of us standing there, and we see these 8 plots all go down. They hit the ground at the same time, and they're all owned by the same person. And I was like, fantastic. That's not possible without some sort of coding or botting stuff going on there. Perfect. That botting problem totally solved it, Treon. Nailed it. So that fucking sucks. But the interesting element, I guess, that you can say what's added to Aurora, unlike the other original islands, is that in these areas you can legitimately own land. So a guild you have to go find this egg in a cave. Literally, you have to go kill a bunch of shit to find this egg, which acts like a pack. So you have to put it on your back and carry it from where you are all the way to the spot where you're supposed to place it. And I don't know what you're mouthing, but
yeah,
why is there an egg?
Okay, hold on. Let me get
fuck's
there.
An egg?
Let me get there.
Is it a dragon?
No, I wish it was a dragon.
This sounds a lot like faction warfare. Yeah.
Land is Sov. Land is exactly like Sov. So you have this egg on your back, and when you have a pack on your back, which the egg acts like, you walk like 80% slower. So you just start to like walk really slow, and then but everyone has to defend you, because if you die with a pack on in the same way that you die with this egg on, anyone can grab it. Anyone can just grab it, take it, and go. So it's like you have all these guilds trying to get these eggs and make it to where they have to go, and there's only one cave where you can get these eggs. That's cave,
actually pretty awesome.
And there's like 8. There's six things of land. So everyone gets an egg, tries to get to this spot where you activate the egg, and you essentially build a castle, and that area becomes yours. That land, that section of land becomes yours. And everything in this bubble that's immediately surrounding the egg that turns into a castle, because everyone knows that's where castles come from, people. We all had the birds and the bees talk. Castles come from eggs.
I'm really trying to follow.
I know, it's really complicated. So everything in this bubble surrounding this castle is like a force field.
Not so much complicated as like fucking asinine.
I know.
Eggs
I know.
Don't turn into castles. In what
yeah,
world?
You don't know. You don't know.
No, we do know.
Anyway.
Science isn't in yet.
Science is still out. So then it creates this like force field bubble where if you placed a house in this area and the guild that placed the egg/castle does not want you there, they can just kick your shit out. They can just get rid of it and make it go away. And then to compound all of this, to make this even fucking worse, that the people who set the castle down can set how high your taxes are, and they get all the money. Well, not all, but a large chunk of it. So, like, I think the maximum they can send is like 50%. And for every plot of land past 3 that you have, your tax certs, the amount of tax certificates that you need to pay your land taxes goes up and up and up and up and up. So, say for example, if you already have 8 plots of land in the old areas, and you get this new one, so now you have 9. Your tax for that 9th plot of land is already like 80 tax certificates plus 50%. Of the base fee or something like that. So they can literally just tax you out of your land. And people are trying to get that land to sell it because it's the only place you can farm a few things and get a few things that are essential, apparently. I don't know what exactly for. I know you can build farm carts with them, but I don't know past that exactly what the trees are for, that you can only farm there. It's very convoluted and very, very fucked up.
This reminds me a lot. I feel like how everyone else feels when I try to explain Eve to them. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
This all sounds really fucking stupid.
It is, and it's pretty arbitrary, and it's pretty interesting. I mean, I think it's funny, and
there's an egg. It only exists in one place, but then you can go get it and take it to another place. But then it turns into a castle.
Yes.
It sounds like something out of the
Which declares that the...
Hold on, let me make sure I have this correct.
Okay.
So, which if you control the castle, you can tax the fuck out of people for some reason.
Yes.
Those people will still continue to put up with high taxes.
Sometimes, not always.
Following free market rules, as we all know. This is how the world works.
Yes.
Thanks, Obama. And then what? Like, people just take your shit. I don't really understand what the fuck.
See, here's the thing. Here's the thing. There's no land anywhere for new people coming into this game.
Is there a flowchart of this somewhere?
I could probably make one. I don't know if there is one, but I could probably make one.
You should maybe make one.
I'll write it
whiteboard
down.
like he has and put it in the back. Yeah.
Chart. I wish, you know what? I wish I would have thought of that. A spreadsheet. Okay, flow charts and spreadsheet. It's written in my notes, so hopefully I can add it to the show notes later.
We should definitely look into that.
You know what? Actually, makes me really sad.
So
sorry,
legitimately, I'm sorry, but the only thing I've heard about ArcheAge, since it came out here in America, because obviously it's existed in the East for some time, Tryon is not the developer of this game, and
they are not.
That's a very important distinction to make.
Yes.
They are
XL Games is the developer.
They are is it just North America, I think, that they publish? I don't think they publish in Europe.
They distribute and publish in, I know, North America. I'm not sure who does that in Europe because I don't care enough about what goes on with gaming there to care.
So this is these are really weird situations usually.
Yep.
And in the industry, when you are just a publisher, there's not a lot you can do.
Nope.
There's actually almost nothing you can do about code issues or anything like that. The one thing that I've heard coming out about ArcheAge consistently, since it's come out here in North America, is the existence of a ludicrous amount of bots and lots of hackers, and it's just riddled and ridiculous with this shit.
And Tryon has come up with a few ways of solving this, and it's my favorite thing when people do this, when companies do this. They get some sort of third-party software that helps them identify problems, which, by the way, always works.
It always works.
It's a phenomenal system. So Tryon has
Norton antivirus, guys.
Yeah, it's perfect. So what Tryon kind of does to counteract these bots is they have a third-party system which flags you as a bot, and it can do one of two things. It can lock your character down completely until you talk to someone on support at Tryon, which, by the way, sitting on support with Tryon took me 8 hours to talk to someone.
Did you? Oh my god.
8?
Jesus.
I got flagged as a bot because the game fucked up and bugged and I dropped through the world, and apparently that's a hack, and now I'm a bot. Ta-da!
Wonderful.
Legit.
Yeah, it sounds legit, right? Who gives a fuck? So I fucking dropped through the world, suddenly I'm a bot, I can't move my character, people can just kill me, greens can come around, people that are supposed to be my allies are just like, oh, I can kill you now, ha, you're a bot, this is so funny. So that was fucking awful. So I finally, yes, I'm a bot, I'm not a real person.
According to Tryon, which is a reputable publisher of games.
Yeah, reputable source. So that sucked, having to sit on chat with them for 8 fucking hours. And then they can't, even when you do talk on chat with them, there's not really a whole lot they can do for you. For example, one of my friends got her item destroyed. Usually when you pick an item up out of your bag and place it out, just like with WoW and any other video game, it asks you, are you sure you want to destroy this item? And it exists because sometimes you accidentally do that and you're like, oh shit, no, I need that. Yeah. And so it destroyed an item that was impossible for her to get back almost, because you had to farm it in Hasla, which is literally the worst thing ever invented. I'm not even going to talk to you about Hasla because it's just awful.
Yeah, I don't think you should.
Nope. So she goes to Tryon and is like, hey, you guys are the only people I can really talk to, so what do I do? Help me out. And they're like, oh, we'll help you out, don't worry about it. And it's been like 3 months and they've done nothing because they can't do anything, because they can't go into the game and give her the item back. They have to go through XL Games, talk to them, be like, hey, this person accidentally destroyed their item, what do we do?
They must have like a 6-month backlog, if anything.
No one can get anything done in that game. I love it, and I agree with Laz. The PvP in ArcheAge is phenomenal. I love it. But dealing with all the other shit so far has been awful. And getting into the new raid that they released is disgusting. You need items to get into a raid? Go fuck yourself.
Whoa.
And you need, like...
Listen.
Sorry. That was Matt. That was me being angry. I was salty. I'm sorry. I'm really salty about it.
Boy.
I'm sorry.
If I had known what you were bringing to this podcast, I don't know.
I'm sorry. It's part of who I am. I can't help it.
It's a very emotional experience with ArcheAge.
It was emotional.
Anyways, so ArcheAge is a big fucking mess.
It is a mess.
And at least in North America, I don't know anything about the Eastern versions. Maybe it's the better play to learn some Korean and just go do that. The other thing, that I wanted to get to real quick was Evolve's Big Alpha was out this last weekend. I got to play it with my my good friends Darius Johnson and Lazarus Tellraven, and Stauffer was on for a little bit, and then I think Asbjorn took over. If anybody's familiar with that guy, he used to work at CCP as well. And Evolve is very interesting. It's got a lot of really cool aspects.
It sounds cool. I'm sad I didn't get it on this alpha when they were giving keys away.
Yeah, and it's not a game that I would typically find myself playing. The basic setup of it is there's 5 players, 4 of them are co-op, 1 of each class, so there's medic, support, assault, and trapper. And then the 5th player is actually the enemy of the other 4 players, playing a monster. The goal of the trappers obviously is to kill the monster. The goal of the monster is to evolve. Go figure.
No way.
And after the 2nd evolution, when they've reached the 3rd tier, God, I forget what it's called, but like some power core populates on the map that you're on, and you have to go destroy it. If you're the monster and you destroy that, or if you survive until the match ends, because there's a time limit, you win.
Thank God.
Yeah. If the trappers kill the monster, they win. Everyone's happy, and you go on. It's very the classes are intriguing. It's some vanilla stuff. The assault is basically what you think. You have a big gun, you rush up on the monster, and you try and blow it away. You get mines, and you got some other stuff, some other features of the class, but it's pretty straightforward. The medic, very straightforward. You have a healing gun that you point at people and it heals them, and you also have a couple of other ancillary abilities such as tranking, which slows down the monster and also populates an outline on the screen so that you know where the monster is. And then you have support, which has something that works like the medic gun, but it prevents any damage being done to the person that it's targeted on. And they have, obviously, again, some ancillary abilities. They have a orbital bombardment thing. It's pretty cool. The coolest thing about the normal classes is the trapper. The trapper has harpoons that slow the monster down. If you upgrade it, you get an actual harpoon gun that you shoot at the monster and it slows it down. If you're not upgraded, the initial tier is harpoon traps that you sink into the ground. Kind of weird. Not entirely useful in some situations. But their big thing, their big ability is the ability to deploy an arena. The arena, if you deploy it correctly, you trap the monster inside of it along with your buddies, you and your buddies. And it shrinks the map down to a manageable size. The thing about these maps is that they're very well designed. It's one of the great, I think, achievements of Evolve that we're going to see, is that the maps are really well designed. They are big, and they are built in such a way that this huge monster can actually stealth around, can actually get away from the hunting party, basically, that's coming after it, effectively, if you know how to play the monster. And so it has this really cool, asymmetric dynamic to it that I don't know that I've seen in too many games pulled off successfully. It was really a lot of fun. The alpha ran into some problems on the PS4, so they extended it an extra day and a half or something. So it was actually out for about 5 days, I think, total.
Okay.
It was really cool. I know that Laz was really happy. He liked it a lot. Even Darius Johnson liked it, and I don't think that's his type of game typically. It's not my type of game typically. And I
sounds
really
like it's right up my alley.
It's got really interesting MOBA elements to it, and one of the things that I think that they're trying to develop is esports as a concept for this. There's some difficulties with that.
Absolutely.
Because of its asymmetrical.
It's asymmetrical, yeah.
Yeah, so it's really hard to judge, who was better in that match, the hunters or the monster.
Yeah.
Two completely different things.
Yep.
That was one of the things I always liked about like Left 4 Dead pro competitive plays. You'd have a team that would be very good at hunters or the infected in general, and then you'd have, but they might be weak as survivors or vice versa. There aren't enough of those asymmetric scenario-based games out there. I think that's enough to make shooters interesting to me, which is not so easy nowadays.
Yeah, I like the idea of it. It reminds me a lot. There was a mod in StarCraft 2 that would essentially be what it was. One person was the Thing, like the movie The Thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to figure out who it was and kill him, but he could sneak around and pretend to be your friend, and like you didn't know who he was until he revealed himself, essentially. And the goal was to try and kill him. And I really liked the aspect of it. It was interesting. It was different. And like you're saying, like the asymmetricality is kind of what makes it cool.
Yeah, it's different.
I like
it's
that.
different, and it can be very competitive. One of the major concerns that I think a lot of people had was its longevity.
Right.
And I kind of felt this as well. Like it seems like something that might get old, but League of Legends is still around, and all they do is add a new champion
every once in
every couple months now.
Kind of.
Obviously, a wide variety of champions is a bit different. They're not going to have that in Evolve. They're not going to have like a wide variety of classes. But each class will have a variety of tiers, and each tier plays a little bit differently. So there is going to be some depth there, and I think that's going to be really interesting to see as it develops.
Yeah, and I mean, just to draw back a little bit to the League parallel, like, you know, it doesn't really matter that League has a diverse pool of champions, because at the end of the day, only a few champions are actually truly viable.
Right.
So it limits your team compositions and your strategies and how they all work out. And yes, they do change. And I think that Evolve, in a lot of ways, has that in its favor, that even games like League of Legends, where you think, oh, it's so diverse because there's so many champions, only like maybe 40 of those champions are actually good enough to play competitively, so it doesn't really matter.
But still, I mean, 40 is a pretty fucking big number.
Yeah.
I guess.
No, really, I mean, we're talking about, like, all we saw in the alpha, anyways, was each class had 2 tiers.
Right.
There are maybe 12 combinations you need to know total.
Hopefully it'll keep getting better.
The monster had 2 flavors as well, so I mean, like, this is silly. Like, at a certain point, like...
You're like, all right, I get it. That's fine. That's
cool. Maybe not enough depth there, but they have said that there are more maps that were not in the alpha. There's more class unlocks that were not in the alpha. All of the usual disclaimers apply.
Right.
This is something that's
alpha is an alpha.
Very, very early, but for it being early, like the gameplay, the core gameplay that you actually experience in this game, super solid. Everything worked really well. There were some problems with matchmaking servers. They did like a big stress test, and that's all to be expected at this point in time. Still really fun. I don't know if I'm going to get it because, like I said, it's not necessarily up my alley, but I'm really tempted. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that pans out.
I'm definitely going to give it a try.
Yeah, I think whenever the beta comes out, I'm sure we'll have some groups running. We'll do some streams of it. People can kind of judge what they think of it.
Yeah.
We'll explore it more definitely as time progresses. The other big news is currently ongoing, so we can't really cover it too much. But BlizzCon is happening right now.
It is happening. Some huge announcements. So.
Yeah, I'm really sad. I actually should be there, but I'm not. Instead, I'm doing this stupid show.
You could have gone. We could have held down the fort.
Yeah.
We could have held down the fort. I love the expression of no, you couldn't. No. Just no.
I got a third webcam around here somewhere. I can find a sub.
Oh, dear.
I bet you can, buddy.
Oh.
Double
see what you did there.
The big announcement that came out today from BlizzCon is the announcement of a new title. It's the first original franchise that they have launched in the last almost 20 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
And they're calling it Overwatch. It's basically Team Fortress 2.
Yes. It makes me wonder a little bit how much of, as they were developing the first-person shooter MMO, what was it, Titan, that they were calling it, Project Titan, how much of that they were like, hey, wait, this would make a really good pseudo.
So
Right.
Yeah.
So we have learned that Titan was essentially at a certain point, it was an MMO that consisted of almost 6 different games, like all under this one big umbrella. Overwatch, as it exists now, is one of those games.
Yes.
So Titan was in development for like something like 7 years.
A long time.
About a year ago, apparently they scrapped everything but this one game mode, and they turned it into Overwatch. So this is the closest thing anybody's ever going to see to Titan.
Yep.
It's got like this kind of superhero kind of dynamic to it.
Yep.
It's got. I imagine it's going to have all the polish that you would expect from a Blizzard title. They don't half-ass these things.
They do not.
Right.
I don't really know. Like, we've seen just very little gameplay of it. What I have seen seems very Team Fortress.
Yes, it does.
Maybe a hair slower than Team Fortress, which is interesting, because Heroes of the Storm is a hair slower than League of Legends.
Yep.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That's their MOBA. So it seems like they're kind of aiming this at a broader audience.
Yeah.
Old people like me could probably play this game. But yeah,
I think that's overall good. I mean, Valve has kind of cornered the market right now with TF2 and CS:GO on these, sort of accessible team-based shooters. There used to be so many of them. You used to have like Unreal Tournament, Capture the Flag going on all the time. You used to have Quake stuff. Now it's pretty much, when it comes to big multiplayer shooters, you've got CS:GO, you've got TF2, and then you have all the Call of Duties and such.
Which all suck.
Yes, which all suck. So this sort of kind of finely honed, well-tuned team versus team gameplay experience, that's something that still is very valuable and not actually, Valve kind of cornered that market by default because there's no competition. There's no new Tribes game,
It's interesting, like, obviously, it's obvious to bring up Valve in this context because it's a very Team Fortress game. But there was already some snarky comments on Twitter and even in our chat now that this is basically payback for Valve taking Dota.
Yeah. Maybe.
Obviously started out off life as a StarCraft mod.
Yes.
So there might be a little bit of push and pull here, maybe a little bit of a jab, but I think that they're just trying to get into spaces that maybe aren't very populated right now. Like as you're just saying,
prefer to believe. Yeah.
There used to be all kinds of these games, and now there really just kind of isn't. And
I have to say, I'm just really happy it's not another MOBA. I'm MOBA'd out.
Well, they already have.
Yeah.
I know, but like everyone else, like all the titles that are all being announced recently over the last I'm gonna say 3 or 4 years, are like, oh look, a MOBA. Oh look, a MOBA. Oh look, a MOBA. And I'm like, hey, I fucking get it. Holy crap, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's ongoing. We don't know what else is coming out. They have announced some stuff. There's a new Hearthstone expansion coming.
Yes.
They revealed some details about the next StarCraft 2 installment.
I'm excited.
So there's some interesting stuff happening at BlizzCon, and Metallica has yet to happen.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked by that. They always get really good bands.
Like,
one of these years I'll do BlizzCon.
No, sorry, no.
No? You don't like?
What the fuck was it last year? It was Blink-182.
Oh,
really?
Okay.
Yeah,
I forgot
really?
that was
What
last
the fuck?
year's. I completely erased that from my memory.
Yeah, I
Nickelback.
didn't go. Like, I went to BlizzCon last year, and I specifically cleared the fuck
Wow.
out before that happened. But yeah, it's I'm sure we'll see some more interesting stuff. I'm giving Overwatch the benefit of the doubt simply because Blizzard is Blizzard.
Yes.
Yes.
Heroes of the Storm, I have doubts about. I played it last year.
Yes, I have doubts about it too.
And I know a lot of people that have played the alpha. It's hitting closed beta soon, I think in January.
Wow, that took them long enough. Holy crap.
Yeah, they're not the speediest developers at times.
Sometimes no, but usually
Hearthstone
it's a
kind of
little.
came out of nowhere. Is the one like
It did come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
They tend not to release garbage, and they tend to outlast their competitors as well. Like EA, I don't remember the name of it, but they had their MOBA. Yeah, that's it. Dawngate was kicking around for like a year and a half. It'd been in open beta for quite some time now. They just straight up shuttered it. I think we're reaching the MOBA market saturation point.
I hope
and
so.
Thank God, because they're so boring.
But it's really funny, though, because in a way, we kind of aren't. They're still basically just League and Dota. And Smite, I guess.
There's
some people,
Smite,
I know you're going to say Smite, Elixir.
I was going to say Smite. I like Smite. I like the difference. I like the top-down. I actually really enjoy Smite in certain situations. There's another one that I can't remember the name of. There's Infinite Crisis, which is awful.
I played that.
The DC one, yeah.
Very early.
I was very excited because I was like, oh my god, comic books! This game sucks.
Oh, good. You get to choose between like 5 different skins of Superman.
Yeah, woo.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no.
I think
there's one more that I can't remember the name of.
The thing about MOBAs, I think, though, is that there's been a lot of attempts to penetrate into this market. There's not been a lot of success.
There has not.
Smite is still not all that successful. There's still basically League and Dota. So it's kind of odd to me when we talk about saturation, even though I understand what you're saying. Like there's lots of options and there's lots of experiments and people are trying to kind of capture this magic that League of Legends has. But I think it's just kind of a fool's game. I mean, in a lot of ways it parallels MMOs in general.
Yep.
Wow.
We had EverQuest come out, and EverQuest kind of served as a proof of concept. Like, yes, people will play these games. You had Dota come out. Like, Dota is a proof of concept. It proved that people will play these types of games. And then you had somebody else come along. So for MMOs, obviously World of Warcraft with Blizzard. With MOBAs, Riot with League of Legends. You have somebody else come along, polish that idea, and then just hit it. And then that's it.
Yep.
And how many MMOs have we seen fail trying to compete with WoW?
Hundreds.
It's
not literally hundreds. It feels like hundreds, yeah.
At least a couple dozen.
So I feel like maybe it's not so much saturation. Maybe it's just they hit gold. Time to fucking move on.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's time to
hit.
We'll see how Heroes of the Storm does once it launches. I mean, if it's one thing to be said about Blizzard is they've made a good name for themselves, and even if their games are and even if, and I mean this comes back to StarCraft and World of Warcraft, where changes happen and people don't like them, and they leave the game for a while, but they almost always come back. It almost doesn't matter what Blizzard does; they almost literally shit gold, and people buy it.
Yeah. Well, even when they release an it's a very polished
It's a very polished, and people play it, and they don't care that it's kind of
Yeah.
You know, Blizzard has made a name for itself, and they're very lucky and fortunate in that department that they could release almost anything at this point, and people would buy into it because it's Blizzard.
Yeah, I mean, they've definitely established that reputation. I think it's deserved at this point.
It is.
Yeah.
Very much.
But I would have said the same thing about Bungie prior to Destiny.
Yeah, they ruined it.
This can go very poorly.
Hopefully they don't do what I'm suggesting because it's a terrible idea. Yeah. But I think the point that I was trying to make is just that, what was it, Overwatch?
Overwatch, yeah.
Overwatch, sorry. It could be good, but even if it's not very good, people will still enjoy it, I feel.
Yes.
People will still play it, people will still buy it. And that's really, at the end of the day, kind of all that matters.
There will be enough there for people to enjoy. So as long as it's profitable and they can make some money off of it, it's going to be around. It's going to be a thing.
Yep.
I think that about brings us to a natural conclusion for the recorded show part of this. If you've watched in the past, you know that we take a short break at this time, and then we come back for overtime, just a quick extra 15-20 minutes, whatever we feel like. We can take your questions from the chat. We can talk about random shit. Maybe Nice Trick can talk about eggs again.
Yes.
We can talk about the process of how eggs turn into castles. It's a natural process, boys and girls. Ask your parents about it.
Before we get
first,
I do want to thank everybody for watching and thank everybody for listening if you're listening to this via iTunes. The big thing that we have going tomorrow is Inside the Developer Studio with Darius Johnson. Once again, he's going to have Josh Augustine from SOE. He's a dev on EverQuest Next on to do a lengthy interview with him. This coming Tuesday, I am going to be streaming actual video games for 24 hours straight. in support of a charity for Veterans Day here in America. That charity is Operation Supply Drop. They provide video game care packages to troops deployed overseas. That includes America and her allies. So all you angry Euros, like, sometimes you get some shit too. But there's like 20 of you in the AOR, so I don't know how many care packages you really want. But anyways, we have that going on Tuesday. You're welcome to stop by at any time on Tuesday. I will be live. Laz will be joining me at one point, and we have some other TMC staff members that are going to be dropping by. We will probably be talking a lot about the military and just stuff in general. The games up on the list are Arma 3, DayZ, The Long Dark, which is a game that I haven't had a chance to play very much yet. I'm really excited
terrifying. To. I don't want to play it. Sounds terrifying.
It's not a scary game. It's not like Halloween.
I don't believe you.
And obviously a good amount of EVE Online to round things out. So yeah, you're welcome to drop by. In other exciting news, we will have a subscriber button on the channel soon. So stay tuned for that. And other than that, does anybody else have anything to round out the show with?
I think you're good.
I think we did a pretty good job here, guys.
Don't get ahead of yourself.
Yeah, whoa, slow your roll, buddy.
I'm done, though.
So we will be taking a short break here. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. We need to refresh ourselves. I need more beer. And get your questions ready. We'll go through them.
I didn't know alcohol was a thing for this stream, so next week I'll be more prepared.
Yeah, just take a couple shots right beforehand.
It
really helps. Yeah.
What a great idea.
Yeah.
You have a big seat to fill, so you need to start pulling your weight.
I have a big... Do I? I would.
Yeah, Darius Johnson is a legend.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's...
And your lack
things
of
I would have liked to have known.
Your lack of intoxication is disconcerting.
Oh, my bad.
Anyways, we'll be back. Thanks for watching. If you're seeing this on YouTube or if you're listening via iTunes, please be sure to leave a like or a rating on iTunes, however you're consuming this wonderful hour and change of gaming news. We'll be right back.